Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. What if I told you that some of the most exciting research into rheumatoid arthritis isn't actually happening in the joints, it's happening in the gut. Inside your digestive system live trillions of microorganisms, mainly bacteria, but also viruses, fungi and other microbes, which collectively make up what we call the gut microbiome. Over recent years, scientists have become increasingly interested in whether these microorganisms could influence inflammation, the immune system, and even the development of autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis. And as often happens with exciting new science, the internet has taken this idea much further. You may have heard that rheumatoid arthritis begins in the gut, that leaky gut causes autoimmune disease, or that probiotics, fermented foods, or a particular diet can reset your microbiome and potentially cure inflammatory arthritis. But is any of that actually true? I'm Dr. Naveen Bhadauria, consultant rheumatologist at Pure Rheumatology London, and in today's video I'm going to explain the fascinating relationship between inflammatory arthritis, your immune system, and your gut microbiome. We'll look at what scientists have discovered in rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and spondyloarthritis, whether gut bacteria could actually contribute to inflammation, and most importantly, whether changing your diet or taking probiotics can make a meaningful difference. And I want to make one thing clear from the beginning. There is increasingly convincing evidence that the gut microbiome and immune system are connected, but that is very different from saying that rheumatoid arthritis is simply caused by bad gut bacteria or that changing your microbiome can cure it. That distinction is really important. What is the gut microbiome? Your digestive system contains an enormous ecosystem of microorganisms, particularly within the large intestine. There are hundreds of different bacterial species, and the exact combination varies considerably between individuals. You can almost think of your microbiome as a biological fingerprint. Your genetics influence it, but so does your diet, age, environment, medications, infections, antibiotics, smoking, and many other aspects of your lifestyle. And these microorganisms aren't simply passengers living inside us. They perform important functions. Some help us break down components of food that we couldn't otherwise digest. Others produce substances called short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, which helps support the cells lining the bowel and can influence immune function. Most importantly for today's discussion, the microbiome communicates with the immune system. And when you think about it, that makes sense. Every day your gut encounters food, bacteria, and thousands of different molecules from the outside world. Your immune system has to constantly decide what is harmless and should be tolerated and what represents a genuine threat. So the gut isn't simply a digestive organ. It's also an incredibly important immune environment. And that's where inflammatory arthritis enters the story. Does the microbiome control inflammation? We often hear about things that boost the immune system, but in rheumatology, we know that a stronger immune response isn't necessarily a better one. In rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and other immune-mediated inflammatory diseases, parts of the immune system become misdirected and contribute to inflammation within the body's own tissues. What we really want is immune balance and regulation, and the microbiome appears to participate in that regulation. Certain gut bacteria and the substances they produce can influence immune cells and inflammatory signaling pathways. The intestinal lining itself also acts as an important barrier between the enormous population of microbes inside the bowel and the rest of the body. When the balance of microorganisms changes, we sometimes use the term dysbiosis. Researchers have found dysbiosis associated with a number of inflammatory and autoimmune diseases, but this immediately creates a scientific problem. If somebody with rheumatoid arthritis has a different microbiome from somebody without rheumatoid arthritis, did the microbiome contribute to the disease? Or did having rheumatoid arthritis change their microbiome? Perhaps their diet changed because they became unwell. Perhaps their medication altered their gut bacteria. Perhaps inflammation itself changed the intestinal environment. This is why one of the most important messages in this entire video is association does not mean causation. Finding a difference doesn't automatically tell us why that difference exists. Rheumatoid arthritis and the microbiome. Rheumatoid arthritis is where some particularly interesting research has taken place. Studies have found differences in the gut microbiome of some people with rheumatoid arthritis compared with people without the condition. One bacterium that has received considerable attention is called Prevotella, copri. Some studies have found increased abundance of Prevotella, copri in subsets of people with newly diagnosed or untreated rheumatoid arthritis. Naturally, researchers asked an exciting question: could certain bacteria contribute to the immune changes that eventually result in rheumatoid arthritis? There are several possible mechanisms being investigated. Microbes can influence immune cells, alter inflammatory signaling, and change the metabolites produced within the gut. Researchers are also interested in whether microbial proteins could interact with the immune system in ways that contribute to loss of immune tolerance in genetically susceptible people. But, and this is crucial, finding Prevotella more frequently in some patients with rheumatoid arthritis does not mean Prevotella causes rheumatoid arthritis. And it certainly doesn't mean we can perform a stool test, find a particular bacterium, eliminate it, and cure the disease. We're simply not there yet. This is a perfect example of how fascinating science can turn into misinformation when the conclusions are taken several steps further than the evidence. Could rheumatoid arthritis begin outside the joints? There is another aspect of this research that I find particularly interesting. We now understand that the biological process leading to rheumatoid arthritis can begin years before somebody develops obvious swollen joints. Some people develop rheumatoid factor or anti-CCP antibodies before clinical arthritis appears. This has led researchers to investigate whether some of the earliest immune changes might occur at mucosal surfaces, including the gut, mouth, and lungs, rather than beginning exclusively inside the joint. Smoking, for example, is a well-established risk factor for seropositive rheumatoid arthritis, particularly in genetically susceptible people. Periodontal disease and the oral microbiome are also areas of considerable research. So rather than saying rheumatoid arthritis starts in your gut, which is far too simplistic, a better question is, could interactions between our genetics, environment, and microorganisms at mucosal surfaces contribute to rheumatoid arthritis in susceptible individuals? And the answer is potentially yes. Rheumatoid arthritis probably develops through a complex interaction between genetics, environmental exposures, and immune biology. The microbiome may turn out to be an important part of that puzzle. But it isn't the whole puzzle. What about psoriatic arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis? The relationship between the gut and joints isn't unique to rheumatoid arthritis. In fact, one of the clearest clinical connections is seen within the spondyloarthritis family. We have known for many years that inflammatory bowel diseases such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis can be associated with inflammatory arthritis. Some patients develop inflammation of the spine and sacroiliac joints, while others develop arthritis affecting peripheral joints. And people with axial spondyloarthritis can sometimes have intestinal inflammation even without obvious symptoms of inflammatory bowel disease. Psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis are also systemic inflammatory diseases, and researchers have identified microbiome differences involving both the gut and skin. So the relationship between the gut and the immune system is clearly relevant to rheumatology. The unanswered question is exactly how we can use that knowledge to improve treatment. What about leaky gut? Now, we need to talk about one of the internet's favorite phrases, leaky gut. There is genuine biology behind the concept. The lining of your intestine forms a highly sophisticated barrier. It allows nutrients to pass through while regulating exposure to microorganisms and other substances within the bowel. In some diseases, intestinal permeability can change. That's real. The problem is that leaky gut has become a catch-all explanation online for everything from fatigue and brain fog to weight gain and autoimmune disease. Patients are then sometimes offered expensive tests, restrictive diets, or supplements that promise to repair the intestinal barrier and cure the underlying condition. That's where the science and the marketing start to separate. Altered intestinal barrier function is a legitimate area of research, but telling somebody with rheumatoid arthritis that their condition is simply caused by a leaky gut and can be cured by repairing it is not supported by current evidence. Now, can diet change your microbiome? This brings us to the practical question most people want answered. If the microbiome matters, can we change it? Yes, diet can influence the gut microbiome. A varied diet rich in plant food provides different types of fiber that gut bacteria can metabolize. Some of those bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids which may have beneficial effects on intestinal health and immune regulation. Broadly speaking, dietary patterns rich in vegetables, fruit, Legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and healthy fats are associated with many health benefits. The Mediterranean diet is particularly interesting because it's been studied extensively in cardiovascular and metabolic health, and there is some evidence of benefit in people with rheumatoid arthritis. But we need to keep this in perspective. A healthy diet is not the same as a treatment for active inflammatory arthritis. If somebody has rheumatoid arthritis with persistent swollen joints and ongoing inflammation, I would not advise them to stop methotrexate or their biologic and try to control the disease with kefir, vegetables, and fermented foods. Nutrition should complement appropriate treatment, not replace it. And that's a message I feel very strongly about. Do probiotics help rheumatoid arthritis? So should somebody with rheumatoid arthritis take probiotics? At the moment, we don't have strong enough evidence to routinely recommend probiotics as a treatment for inflammatory arthritis. There have been small clinical studies looking at probiotic supplementation in rheumatoid arthritis, and some have reported changes in inflammatory markers or measures of disease activity. But there are important limitations. The studies are often small. Different studies use different bacterial strains, different doses, and different durations of treatment. And that's important because probiotic isn't one treatment. Two probiotic products may contain completely different organisms. Asking whether probiotics treat rheumatoid arthritis is a little like asking, do medications treat rheumatoid arthritis? Which medication? At what dose? For which patient? We need much better evidence before probiotics become part of routine treatment. Fermented foods such as yogurt or kefir can certainly be part of a healthy diet if you enjoy and tolerate them. But I wouldn't recommend spending large amounts of money on supplements because somebody has promised that they will reset your microbiome or your immune system. Do you need to eliminate certain foods? Another trend I see is patients becoming increasingly restrictive with their diets. They remove gluten, they remove dairy, then nightshades, then carbohydrates, then lectins. Eventually, someone who started out trying to improve their arthritis is frightened to eat almost anything. Unless you have celiac disease, an allergy, an intolerance, or another clear medical indication, extremely restrictive diets can create their own problems. You can develop nutritional deficiencies, lose weight unintentionally, and make food a source of anxiety. If you notice a particular food consistently affects your systems, that's absolutely worth discussing. But don't assume there must be one hidden food causing your rheumatoid arthritis. Autoimmune disease is much more complicated than that. So what should you actually do? If you have inflammatory arthritis and want to look after your gut health, my advice is surprisingly straightforward. Eat a varied, nutritious diet with plenty of plant-based foods and fiber if you tolerate them. Include vegetables, fruit, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. A Mediterranean-style diet is a sensible framework for many people. Exercise regularly within your capabilities. Don't smoke. Try to maintain a healthy weight. Use antibiotics when they're medically necessary, but not unnecessarily. And be skeptical of expensive microbiome tests claiming they can tell you exactly which foods to eat or which supplements will treat your arthritis. For most people, getting the fundamentals right is far more useful than trying to micromanage individual species of bacteria. Where is the science going next? And this is where things get genuinely exciting. Imagine if in the future we could combine genetics, antibodies, and microbiome patterns to identify somebody at high risk of rheumatoid arthritis before their first joint becomes swollen. Could we intervene early? Could modifying environmental factors reduce that risk? Could targeted microbial therapies become part of treatment? Could your microbiome help predict which rheumatoid arthritis medication is most likely to work for you? These are fascinating questions and research is underway, but they're possibilities for the future, not established treatments today. And I think that's the right way to look at the microbiome. It's neither meaningless nor magical. It's an incredibly exciting area of medicine that may change how we understand inflammatory arthritis, but we need to let good quality evidence guide us rather than getting ahead of the science. So if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Your gut may be part of the inflammatory arthritis story, but it isn't the whole story. The gut microbiome interacts with the immune system. Differences have been identified in people with rheumatoid arthritis and other inflammatory conditions. Diet can influence the microbiome, and looking after your gut health makes sense as part of looking after your overall health. But we currently don't have a probiotic microbiome test or special diet that can cure rheumatoid arthritis. For now, healthy nutrition should sit alongside effective rheumatological treatment, not replace it. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more evidence-based videos about rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease, medications, nutrition, and rheumatology. And if you'd like me to take this subject one step further, let me know in the comments, because I think the perfect follow-up video would be, can diet really reduce rheumatoid arthritis inflammation? In that video, we could look at the Mediterranean diet, omega-3 fasting, gluten, nightshades, ultra-processed foods, supplements, and separate what actually has evidence behind it from what is mostly hype. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.